You earn everything, every single day, over and over again. You have to prove it. That's the way that the NFL, that's the way that football works. A great example of this is Dak Prescott and what he's done. He's earned the right to be our quarterback.
That wasn't done for the cameras. That's the way he feels. The competitor in Tony, he'll shoot nickels with you for a line. Anytime you're ready, he'll do anything to compete. He loves to compete. And that's what made it so special for him to step up and really for the team, but for everybody involved. He took the coaches off the hook. For whatever hook I'm on, he took me off. He took everybody, everybody, off the hook when he said, this is Dak's job. He's earned it.
Oh, Jerry, Jeff Saturday in the house. How we doing?
Fantastic. How you doing?
Good. Good to see you. You're going to be very excited about our next subject. I know you're fired about this, but you just stay tuned for that. But first, we need to talk about Jerry with my man Stephen A. here. Stephen A., is Jerry right?
It depends on how you look at it. To me, it's embarrassing that he would say Tony Romo took him off the hook. You're the owner. You're the man that cuts the check. Not to mention the GM, the wannabe coach, the wannabe the president and everything else in between. You're that dude. What the hell you mean he took you off the hook? Or took Jason Garrett off the hook, or took Stephen Jones off the hook, for that matter. You mean that Dak Prescott going out there, balling out, en route to an 11-game winning streak with a QBR that was top 2 in the NFL, clearly in line for Rookie of the Year and mentioned in league MVP conversations. You mean that Tony Romo going up there acting like he was writing a retirement speech, for crying out loud, holding back tears? And by the way, I don't understand why it was a damn speech. Why did you have to read something? Look, I'm on the sidelines. I was hurt. He came in here the way he's balling. There's really nothing to talk about. I love to play, but look, this is what he's doing. That would be that. But all the drama that comes with it, his epitaph that he was writing made no damn sense for me. It was very, very melodramatic. And in the case of Jerry Jones getting back to him, I think it's utterly embarrassing that he would go on the air and say what he just said in terms of being let off the hook. Why the hell would you need to be let off the hook? Dak Prescott is flat out balling. You're winning games. You're a Super Bowl favorite for the first time in 2 decades. What do you mean being left off the hook? Maybe he's right. I don't know. But I think it was absolutely ridiculous for him to come out of his mouth and acknowledge such a thing, because it should not have required being let off the hook. You're in the production business. Dak Prescott is producing. That should have been that.
What hook? I agree. What hook? What hook is he on? What were they, like 8-1 at the time? Well, that's quite a hook to be on. Look, Jerry Jones has a quality about him that produces loyalty in others. You know, it elicits that's how they respond, because he's obviously a loyal guy and feels the loyalty to Tony Romo. And so there are lots of good things you can say about Jerry Jones as an owner and the way he relates to his players. However, Jerry Jones also may have a narcissistic personality disorder. It always has to be all about him in every way. And in that sense, when the Cowboys succeed, they've succeeded either at times in spite of him, or because he's relinquished some control to Stephen Jones, who's made a lot of good decisions on personnel, right? Like they didn't draft Johnny Manziel. They went after the offensive lineman and all that. And I think Romo, if it's true as Stephen A., you say that he sees Romo as like his adopted son, then the reason he feels like on the hook is because he sees Romo as like an extension of himself. You know, it has to be about him. And so by Romo having the press conference, which I imagine Jerry Jones or someone probably picked up the phone and said, Tony, we need you to do this. And Tony, I'm sure, would reciprocate that loyalty because of how loyal Jerry Jones has been. He feels off the hook. He feels like his own ego is let off the hook when there was no hook in the first place. You were winning.
Well, I think one thing you have to look at for a Tony Romo situation was the Cowboys, their fan base, the way Jerry had talked about what they said before Dak ever went. When Tony gets back, this is his team. And when you say things like that, that is your full intention, right? Most people say, hey, you don't lose a job because of injury, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is that's not true, right? Guys get hurt, next guy comes in and plays well, it's his job. I mean, that's just the way the football world goes. But when you're talking about a quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, the relationship that you just referenced between Jerry, Jason Garrett, Stephen Jones, and Tony Romo, all of those guys, how they built this thing together, the way they were working towards
I'm sure he felt some tension of what he was going to do. I do think what Tony Romo did was good for their football team and their fan base by just walking in and assuring everybody what we all know, right? Because we don't have any vested interest. We're not Cowboy fans, haters, either way. We're just going to look at the field and say, hey, this is what should happen. But for people who live and die about Cowboys and, they're wearing the 9 jersey, the whole deal, when Romo goes up and says, listen, Dak Prescott has earned the right to do this, there is no question because he knows it.
But wait a
now
minute,
fans
Jeff.
know it. Everybody knows
Wait
it.
a minute,
Right.
Jeff.
And it's not going to be a distraction.
Yep.
That's the main issue.
Jeff,
it's
I
not
have a
should
question.
Romo be playing. It's can everybody else, every time Dak struggles a little bit, can everybody get off the Romo train, understand you have to let this quarterback continue to grow and develop because he is a rookie. He's not playing like
Jeff,
a rookie,
I
but he
have
is
a
a rookie.
question.
Yeah, what's up?
I have a question, Jeff Saturday.
Yes, sir.
Why the damn speech? Why the speech? A written speech.
I'm with
what
you on
was that
but
about?
I think Max made a good point. I'm sure Jerry or Steve, someone called and said, "Hey, listen, we would appreciate you doing this." And I'm sure this was not Romo's idea. Hey, I'm gonna come up and say, but what he did was heartfelt. I don't want to discredit this because I respect the way he said it. It's hard. I don't care what anybody says. Listen, you've been in this thing for a long time. You put everything you're in. You still believe you're a baller. To go up there and say, "Hey, this guy is better than me," that's a hard thing to say, and it's reality. But it is still hard. Take nothing away from that. But I don't think this was scheme from Tony Romo. I think he did the right thing.
Steven's question, though, I think that the point is it only became that level issue, right? And I always go back to Kurt Warner, who won his job because of injury, became probably the best player in football, at least the most celebrated MVP Super Bowl winner, and then lost his job to injury to a good but not great quarterback, Mark Bulger. Kurt Warner was probably still better than Mark Bulger, but they were 8-0, so he never got his job back, right? And that didn't become the issue that this became because the owner.
Exactly.
Well, but it's not just Dallas. It's because, to Steven's point, the owner kept pumping up Romo. You feel like if you took Jerry Jones out of it, it wouldn't have been the same kind of controversy.
I agree with that, but to your point earlier, Jerry can't help himself. I mean, from the narcissistic point of view, he wants to be in the news. He wants to keep the Cowboys in the news, right? I mean, he understands business. This guy knows what he's doing. He wants to keep it on the forefront of everybody's mind. So if he can cause issue without being a distraction for his team, it's a win-win.
And Romo's doing what he's asked, and I feel like he wrote it out so he could articulate himself the way he wanted to in case he got emotional, which he did a little bit.
Unbelievable. Y'all are all unbelievable. I mean, why don't y'all just put on the Cowboy pom-poms? You got apologies everywhere. Oh, this is what they were thinking. And that's what they were thinking. Is everything's fine. All his explanation. Come on.
Little segment.
I mean, damn. Jeff sounded like he wanted to write Tony Romo's apology for him. I mean, damn.
Jeff just gave me a nice segue. Can we continue here, please? We have an NFC East showdown tomorrow night in the city of brotherly love when the 10-4 New York Football Giants hope to clinch a playoff berth with a win against the 5-9 Eagles, but it won't be easy. Eagles offensive tackle Lane Johnson will return from a PED suspension. Max, we know how you feel about offensive lines and what they do for the football team. Jeff Saturday, we know how you feel, no bias. Is Lane's return a big deal for the Giants?
Yeah, I mean, the Giants are on upset alert right now. The Eagles always play them tough anyway. Like, I hate that matchup. I'd so much rather play Washington or Dallas than Philadelphia as a Giants fan. They just always play us tough. But us, I'm a Giants fan. Okay, fine. I make no apologies. In this case, though, with Lane Johnson, we have those numbers. Where are the numbers? Did we show those yet? Did we show the full screen?
Bring them.
Let's show them now. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, there's
look at this with Lane Johnson. Look at the difference. Points per game over a touchdown better. Look at the turnovers. The time of possession. Why is that? Because they ain't playing from behind with Lane Johnson. Why is that? Because he blocks and helps the running game. What does that do? Now you got play action. You got a passing game. Carson Wentz is much better. It sets everything up. And without Lane Johnson, yes, one offensive lineman, their best one, there was a tipping point. And they went from a team just good enough to be really good to a team without quite enough in the run game in particular to set up the pass and therefore not enough offense. And that negatively affected their defense. And they've been a different team. I hate the fact that he's coming back and now they're playing the Giants and the Giants are on short rest. I hate this game.
I love you. I mean, I'm just going to say. I mean, I'm putting pom-poms on for Max.
You're feeling like the quarterback right now.
I really am. I mean, he has made
like
Lane
Tony.
Johnson the argument for league MVP right now. He just articulated league MVP for Lane Johnson. And listen, as much as I do love an offensive lineman getting some major pub, and he does deserve it, he's a good player, the reality is the reason Wentz and all those numbers changed dramatically dealt with defenses knowing who he was now. When you start fresh, people don't know what you're going to have. They didn't know Peterson. He hadn't called plays. They didn't know Wentz yet. No one kind of knew or got a feel yet. So as teams began to catch on, now, not having an offensive lineman that is productive, your run game going down, all those things do hurt you, but people just caught up to it. And let's be honest, the receivers for Philadelphia aren't scaring anybody. And then on top of that, they drop balls, haven't played well, their confidence is shaken. All of those things come in. And as good as your defense is, if you can't sustain drives and score points, it is.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right.
Let me say this, too, about Lane Johnson. It doesn't matter what position. Coming in after missing 10 games, it is difficult to get back up to game speed that fast. And the Giants' D-line is playing good. And so as you're watching this, make sure you understand, he's going to pick the game up really quickly. All of a sudden, guys start hitting that Jet 9 technique flying by. You got to get out of that stance really quick.
Let that be right. Let that be right.
Stephen A.
I don't have anything to add. What else is there to say?
MVP, Lane Johnson.
So you think the Giants are going to win?
No, the fact of the matter is that Max is hitting a panic button because of one offensive lineman. I think everybody knows that's utterly ridiculous. The only reason why Jeff Saturday did not say so is because he's a former offensive lineman himself who get no love. And he obviously feels, he's sensitive to the fact that there's somebody on national television showing offensive linemen some love. I would remind Jeff Saturday that the Cowboys have religiously received love the world over. Everybody knows their offensive line is elite, so it's not like no offensive line gets love. The Raiders' offensive line has gotten love. The Cowboys' offensive line has gotten love. The Eagles got love last year with Lane Johnson in the lineup this year. He's obviously out for 10 games due to the PED suspension. In the end, what it comes down to is simply this. The Eagles don't have receivers outside of Jordan Matthews, and Jordan Matthews is not really a number one. Mm-hmm. That's your problem. You combine that with a rookie quarterback, even though Ryan Matthews is averaging 4.5 yards a carry, and Darren Sproles is doing the same, they're not primary backs that you want to hand the ball to and say, take me to the promised land. And plus that, you got a rookie coach that at least Vegas, when you talk to the handicappers out there, because I interview them once a week on my radio show, Sirius XM Mad Dog Sports Radio, the Stephen A. Smith Show. When you're sitting up there and you're talking to them,
wait, what time is that on, Stephen A?
1 to 3 p.m. every weekday. Okay, but there are changes coming, which will be announced at the beginning of the new year.
That's the bottom line. I like that.
That's the bottom line. Hold on. That's the bottom line. In the end, what it comes down to is this. You look at them, rookie coach, rookie quarterback, okay, a number 2 wide receiver posing as a number 1. You don't really have much. That's the problem. Lane Johnson is an additional problem, but he ain't the MVP candidate that Max is trying to make him out to be.
I hope you're right.
Period.
Jeff, who you got reading this one?
I got Giants.
Yeah?
They're playing. Listen, I'm impressed with what they're doing. I mean, they are finding ways to win. It's not always pretty, but they are hanging in there. And we all know, we've seen this script before. Manning with a good defense coming late in the year, and all of a sudden he can potentially catch fire. I mean, it's a dangerous formula because they believe. They've seen it before. They believe. People buy into it is.
I see it. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, changing gears back to the Cowboys for a quick second.
Yeah.
You getting
We talked about Tony Romo. We talked about Tony Romo, the adopted son.
Yeah.
We're all touched by him, the emotional letter, the epitaph, the retirement speech that he wrote. Yeah. Did you know that, I mean, you would think about him like he's a future Hall of Famer, right? Well, you know there's a Hall of Famer, a legitimate Hall of Famer, who would happen to be the greatest cornerback in the history of football, some would say, prime time, Deion Sanders.
Yep.
Do you know that he's not even in the Cowboys Ring of Honor? Just a thought.
He's
not even in the Ring of Honor. He's not even in the Ring of Honor.
Deion's the second best player I've ever seen by Lawrence Taylor.
Hold on, excuse me, Max. I just text Prime because I said, wait a minute. We talk about Romo here. Look at the jerk. What about Prime? Is he even in the Ring of Honor for the Dallas Cowboys? I just text Prime to ask him. He said, no, sir. That's all he said, no, sir.
They got another Super Bowl.
Primetime Deion Sanders is not in the Cowboys. Primetime Deion Sanders is not in the Cowboys Ring of Honor, but we talk about Tony Romo like he rocked the star back. Man, go to commercial. I'm just done. I'm just done. I'm not here. Let me drink my tea. I don't want to talk about it no more.
I don't want to talk about it no more. See you in the new year.
Thank you, brother.
Appreciate you.